This is the second installment of this series. So, the production value is bumping up a little bit each time. Thank you, Showfields, and thank you to Triple Whale who's sponsoring this as well. Like James mentioned, we really care about providing highly tactical, relevant strategies and tactics to you all who are hopefully in the marketing industry, maybe executives at a business. Actually, let me do this. Who is either the CEO, co-founder, or executive level at their company? Raise your hand. Okay, cool. Who is either running or on some sort of marketing team? Okay, and then anybody in like creative and production? Okay, cool. All right, cool. Just helps me out a little bit. So we're hoping that these talks, you can walk away with some crystals. The big theme of this year in direct-to-consumer, e-commerce, marketing has been profitability rather than top-line growth. So we want to get, thank you so much. We want these keynotes to be tailored towards that as opposed to loftier things that may not apply to you tomorrow. So if you don't know me, I'm Jackson, co-founder, chief creative officer at Darkroom. I just want to give a little bit of a frame and explain what we do at Darkroom so you understand our perspective. We work with, I have OCD. This is going to trip me out. I'm just going to move that mouse. So we work with typically 7 to 8 figure brands and try to help scale them to 9 and 10 figures. And we do so by implementing systems and frameworks as opposed to just sort of like one-off, ad hoc work. So we've worked with, some pretty reputable names here. We've also invested in a number of brands that are either supporting the space or directly in the direct-to-consumer space as well. So what I'm going to be talking about today is this concept that we call a campaign flywheel or flywheels. As a creative, my inclination is to talk about the big, sexy billboard in Times Square, the Super Bowl ad, the guerrilla ads that you see outside, and the kind of like marginal stuff. But I think this concept is what actually props up all of that other work that we love to kind of drool over. So I wanted to go through this. And a lot of the brands that I just showed on the screen or brands that come to us and are interested in working with us, it's surprising how little of like systems level thinking and building they've actually applied to their marketing program and to their overall business as well. So Nikita Beer, who's the founder of a lot of like viral consumer apps, he said it best, and you probably can't read this, so I'll just read it for you. It says, "A reproducible testing process is more valuable than any one idea. Innovate here first. All things equal, a team with more shots at bat will win against a team with an audacious vision." So kind of just, furthering my point about frameworks and methodical building. So what are we talking about here? This is like a bird's eye visual of when I talk about campaign flywheel, what I mean. It's kind of a two-parter. On the left here, we've got like a 5-step cyclical process, which keeps things in motion between individuals on a team. And then on the right, we have a testing framework, which is a 5-phase framework. Basically, this process right here is the process through which we are bringing marketing experiments through these 5 phases. So I'm going to go through each of these steps and actually how to carry this out. But I just want to give you like a visual so you're not wondering what I'm talking about with all the jargon that I'm using. Before I jump into that, half of my talk is going to be about like why this is important. I was talking to Ron earlier, who's a founder of a brand, and we were just chatting about how a lot of this type of thinking it's a mindset, it's a culture that you have to build into your company. And then in the latter half of the presentation, I'll be actually talking about like tactical process. So if we take a step back, and I apologize for the size of the font here, I'll be reading these to you. We take a step back and look at the lifespan of businesses, you can kind of like tranche out these different stages. So I have stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 here. Stage 1 is like a brand that's doing like 1 to 10 million in annual revenue. They've achieved product market fit. They have a meaningful business, and now they're trying to cross into that 8-figure threshold, which is a grind. A lot of brands will get stuck in this stage. Stage 2, 10 to 50 million, and then stage 3 is like 50 million and up. And our belief is that in order to traverse these stages effectively and efficiently and sustainably, you want to focus on systems. You want to focus on building campaigns and like operationalizing your marketing programs. You want to focus on the most evergreen campaigns and marketing programs, and like really suck all of the juice you can out of those and make sure you're scaling those before moving on to more advanced programs that honestly may be a waste of your time if you haven't locked these in yet. So just big picture there for you. So how do we define campaign? If you are familiar with Facebook ads, TikTok ads, running email campaigns or SMS campaigns, campaign, this word is thrown around a lot. What we mean is campaign is a message or set of messages communicated to various audiences through multiple channels in order to achieve a metric goal, which is typically always going to be awareness, perception, or sales. So it's not like one email campaign inside of Klaviyo or one SMS campaign, but it's actually multiple channels working in tandem to achieve this goal. And so common campaign types might be just pure customer acquisition, customer retention, loyalty. You may have an integrated mix of these three: acquisition, retention, product launch, brand awareness, brand perception. These are campaign types that use both acquisition channels and customer retention channels together to achieve these goals. So all I mean by that is like, in the growth marketing space, we often think of Facebook ads and email marketing campaigns as separate parts of the funnel or completely separate campaigns. But in reality, they work together to achieve things like customer acquisition. And I can go into more of that later. So some common campaign types: pretty much every single business is going to have, these at least 5 campaigns, if not all 7. You got your evergreen bestseller SKU. For a software company, that's going to be like your middle premium tier. That's going to be your best-selling product. For a fashion brand, that's going to be like maybe your white tee that you're known for, whatever it is. Your evergreen secondary SKUs, what people typically purchase after they've come in on a bestseller purchase. You have new product collection launch, evergreen, broad, brand-focused stuff, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, back to school, seasonal holidays, et cetera, et cetera. Like every brand is going to have these 7 things. So let's lock those in, train our teams to be consistently improving and scaling those campaigns before we try to like get fancy and do all this one-off stuff. That's the goal. Hopefully this is making sense. Making sense so far? All right, cool. Thank you. So if we look at like companies and brands that are, at scale with their marketing programs, I have Mudwater. Dr. Squatch is used a lot in our space as like a comparison. Speechify is more of it's an application, and then Sabai actually. We have Pantilla here from Sabai. So if you look at these marketing programs, they have a really diverse mix of static images, videos, influencer, UGC. And then they've scaled out to podcast placements, affiliates, right? They have a really rich marketing mix, which is a lot to manage. And it's like, how do we even get there to begin with? Where do we even start? Well, you need a reliable system to get there. So I'm just going to talk about 6 things that kind of prove my point about why flywheels are so important. So the first core reason is flywheels help you break through growth plateaus. I don't expect you guys to read this. It says you have a more valuable backlog of test ideas when you have this process that I'm going to go through. Your testing process is always on. It never stops, and you reduce lag time between deploying marketing tests, analyzing the data, and then using that data to actually iterate on what you learned. The second thing is you can scale your team and resources more effectively, thereby gaining leverage. As a marketing director, as a CEO, you need to actually scale yourself out of some of the fundamentals so that you can work on marketing innovations or product innovations or whatever. If you don't have a repeatable process, you can't really train anybody on how to make decisions, and your peace of mind is going to evaporate. The third thing is to future-proof your marketing program, you need to diversify, which is kind of what I just mentioned. By building momentum and gaining leverage, you become more able to think about diversification of not just like channels, like, okay, we've launched Facebook ads, now we want to launch on TikTok. I'm not talking about just channels, but I'm talking also about styles of creative, different types of campaigns that can protect you against leaning too heavily on your bestseller campaign, which a lot of brands can do. They become too reliant on some of those core campaigns that I had up here. And then over time, the rest of their program doesn't keep up, and they actually start to like cannibalize, and like it deteriorates. 3 other reasons that are more contextual for right now. As you diversify your program, incrementality and understanding what new sales channels or marketing channels you're adding, what value do they drive, it becomes more and more complex to actually measure. So by having this process, you'll be able to analyze what's working in a much more thoughtful and deliberate way. This strengthens your team's logical reasoning muscle. As like iOS 14, iOS 17, privacy changes affect the way your marketing team is able to attribute like what's working, what's not working. You have to look at signals from multiple different places to be able to kind of like piece together a picture, but that picture is inherently like gray area. And so you need to be able to like use deductive reasoning, use logic, and kind of talk it out and or tell a story, paint a picture with that data. And then the third thing is that this process ensures each person on the team knows who's responsible for what, which increases accountability in a more remote work environment. I need to unlock the screen again. I'm sorry. Can you just give me the code?
Yeah, 24681.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. All right, so let's get into the actual process. Who's involved in the process? This is how we've engineered it at Darkroom, so this might look different for you if this applies to your business. For us, we have a customer acquisition manager that's accompanied by an associate level person. This is like more junior person that's like in training. We have a customer retention manager and an associate. We have a creator manager. This person's in charge of facilitating user-generated content, but also like higher fidelity studio content and then everything in between. So they're getting net new creative assets for us. And then we have a designer, video editor, and then a project manager engineer. This is like digital focused stuff if we need to make a change to a website or something more technical. If you're a new startup, probably most of these things, at least 4 of them, is just going to be like the founding team. And that's okay. It might be a consortium of like different external partners that you have. That's fine as long as each step of the process is respected and everyone else knows who's responsible for what. There needs to be one person ultimately responsible for each step. Asa, I'm so sorry, dude. 2468. 2468 what? 246810. Now you all know his password. All right. So the steps. There are 5 steps, okay? The first step is campaign strategy. The second is research and ideation. The third is we're defining tests, and I'm going to get really into this. This is like where that testing framework comes into play. The fourth is production, and then data analysis. So let's jump into it. So campaign strategy. This is your home base. You have basically a Bible, an outline for the campaign that includes the goals of the campaign, and it includes winner or proven components. So proven audiences, proven messaging, proven calls to actions, and then the various marketing channels that you're actually deploying communications through. And then it's really important that this like outline, this Bible for your campaign, includes like next priorities. What are we testing next? What are we doing next? So everything comes back to this, by the way. The second step is research and ideation, which gets glossed over way, way, way too frequently. And so what we do is we've set up exercises and like prompts basically to facilitate this. So what we want to be doing is kind of doing quantitative and qualitative analysis to come up with like big ideas, but also micro innovations at the same time. So you can use tools like SimilarWeb to perform competitive digital analysis. You can use like Chrome extensions like TikTok Audit and Twemex for Twitter that will show you highest viewed TikToks or highest viewed tweets or retweets, things of that sort, to come up with like new creative ideas, new hook ideas, etc. Okay. How am I doing on time? All right. So this is like one of the most important parts of this entire thing. So pay attention to this. So when we're defining tests, we need to define at least 6 components per test. Okay, so you have a test type. There are many different common test types. I have your offer, different audiences, creative tests, conversion rate optimization tests, channel tests. And then we have test phases. This is one of the most essential components of this entire idea. We have 5 different phases that you've seen in that graphic that I showed earlier. We have a pilot phase. We have a positive signals phase. Then we scale and replicate. We optimize, and then we fully integrate. So basically in the pilot phase, we're trying to invest in experiments with as little money and time as possible just to see, is this going to be something that's viable? In the positive signals phase, we're gaining like a little incremental signal of like, okay, this is working, and this is something that we should pursue. Now, if your test stops right here, it's not the end of the world, because this can become a backlog of like ideas that have worked previously that then you can retap later. Then we have scale and replicate, where we're adding more pressure, we're adding more investment, either monetarily or with time and actual human capital, to see if like we're going to see a proportional scale here. Then we're optimizing to find like the absolute best case scenario for this tactic, and then we're fully integrating back into the campaign strategy. So we need a hypothesis for every single test. We need to define exactly what the positive signals that we're looking for are, and how does that tell us a story. And that should be really clear to creative people who aren't performance-based, so that they can actually contribute to this process. And then ultimately, we're going to have a qualitative analysis, and then tentative next steps of like, what would we do with this information? That's really important. Otherwise, tests can just like drop. They just get dropped. Dude, you gotta increase the time here. I talk too slowly. Okay, so I have 3 examples of different tests. I have an offer test, a creative test, and a channel test. I'm only going to just like breeze through 2 of these because I know I'm like already taking a lot of time. You guys are probably falling asleep. So the offer test, our hypothesis is based on the competitive landscape, our shipping rate is high. It's become a customer objection. They don't want to pay this much for shipping. If we cut the shipping rate in half, we could boost conversions and still optimize for profit while keeping advertising spend the same. Positive signals. In this phase, we want to see a significant increase in sales, at least 1.5x, when compared to the standard shipping rate. Tentative next steps would be to increase traffic and look for proportional increase. So pretty simple, and I'm gonna go through, but you can see like it's pretty simple to construct these things, but it provides so much clarity for the entire team. Okay, so now we're bringing that test through each of the 5 stages, right? So in the pilot stage, we reduce the shipping rate from $10 to $5, And we A/B tested that with one landing page versus the original shipping rate. We saw sales increase by 1.5x, and net profitability was maintained at threshold. So we're like, okay, this is looking good. Like, we have something here. Let's scale this. Let's add more money to it, send more traffic to this landing page, and see if we get a proportional scale in conversions and profit. So we see that works over 2, 4, 6 weeks, whatever it is. We optimize it. We play around with the shipping rate. We found that a $3 rate actually boosted conversions and maintained our profit threshold. So we're going to now fully integrate. The $4 rate actually became the winner. Okay, so the point here being we kind of played with it to see financially what's going to make the most sense, and then the $4 rate became the winner. So we actually updated the entire shipping rate policy site-wide. That's a very generic kind of test, but it gives you an idea of how we bring this through these stages. This may seem bureaucratic, but actually what it does is it makes sure tests aren't getting dropped. It makes sure that we are documenting what's happening. And for stakeholders such as marketing directors, CMOs, they have peace of mind knowing that there's like an actual process for fully integrating stuff that's truly working and not just like works once and then we integrate it. Okay, after we've defined the test, we then go into production. This could be like design, video editing, digital product optimization, whatever. This is a whole talk in and of itself right here. Actually, Dara and I worked really hard on this. She's our head of creative at Darkroom. She did a lot of this work. And anyway, it's a whole talk in and of itself, so I'm going to gloss over it. And then finally, we have data analysis where we're pulling from multiple sources based on the positive signals that we defined to then tell that story. And then this analysis, whatever analysis we draw, then informs that creative strategy to either fully be integrated into the campaign or become and influence the next priorities that we have for that specific campaign. And then we can store all of this info in different databases. Depending on, we have a campaigns database, we have a test database. So now you can historically go back and look 6 months back, what tests were we running, and you can actually see each phase of the test and what was happening. That is super meaningful when you're trying to traverse from a $5 million brand to a $50 million brand. Okay, closing thoughts. So I just pulled some LinkedIn and Twitter, some tweets from some reputable people in the space. These are two sentiments that often get talked about a lot. So Barry says, finding an experienced creative strategist who understands creative and performance is virtually impossible. Plenty claim they do, but few can walk the walk. If you have a process like this, it actually reduces obscurity for people who are more performance-based, that you want to act more as a creative strategist, and it allows them to be more creative and focus on what really matters. Cody's the CMO of Jones Road Beauty. He says, every time our performance has taken a big hit, it's often correlated with decreased volume of creatives. I took a look at our P&L a few months ago and was not happy with how little we were spending on creative. So he's talking about volume of creative. When you have this type of process, like I said, it reduces lag time to make sure you're not just searching for like one-off banger pieces of creative and then just like letting those ride, but you're always iterating on stuff, even if it's working super, super well. Okay, great. This was a lot of information, and there's like so much more in this. So I'll be sharing this presentation with more info through our newsletter in the next few weeks. So go to darkroomagency.com/newsletter to get that. Hit me up on LinkedIn. And if you ever have questions about anything that I just talked about or anything in terms of marketing program scale, just email me, jackson@darkroomagency.com.